Okay, this video I'm showing you guys how to make a simple character inside of Unreal using C++. So to get started, we're just going to create our project. So I'm going to go to Games, Blank. I'm just going to use a Blueprint template, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call this Player Project, and I'll create that. Okay, so once your project has loaded, we're going to make some classes. So first of all, go to Tools, then New C++ class, and then first of all we're going to make a character class. So click on character, next, and then we're just going to name it. I'm going to name mine CPP underscore player. You can name it whatever you want, just remember what you named it. Okay, so let's create our class. Alright, so once that's compiled, we're also going to make another class. So go back to new CPP class, and this one's going to be a game mode base. So I'm just going to name this CPP under game mode base, and then create that. Alright, so once that's all compiled and you have your CPP files, it should open up in your IDE. But before we start coding, we need to go to our project settings. Then we need to go to our input in the engine. Then go to bindings and axes. Alright, add an axis, and then we're going to call this move forward. Now, and we're going to key value, which is going to be W, and we're going to make another one, which is S, and this is -1. And we're basically do the same thing for move right, and add D, and then also A, and A is going to be negative. So adding our look, which is going to be called look, and we're just going to call this mouse Y, and this is going to be a negative, otherwise it will be inverted. And another one which is going to be turn, and this one is going to be mouse X. Also going to add jumping. This one's going to be an action mapping, and we're going to click add, and we're going to call this jump, and I'm going to assign this to space. Once we've done that, we can go into our program file. Right, so go to our header file. So we need to make a couple of functions. Now I'm going to do this in my protected section. So if I make children of this class, they will also have this functionality. So we're going to call it void move forward, and that's going to be the name of our function, and we're going to add float value. Now this is going to be what when we press down W or S, it's going to give us a value like 1 or -1, 0, and that's going to be this. And we're also just going to put this in a U function. Right, do the same thing for our move right. I'm just going to copy this and then just change this to move right. That's the only functions that we need. We don't need one for jumping or looking because that's actually built in. We just need to access it. So let's go into our CPP file, and we need to create our implementation. Now, if you're using something like Visual Studio or Rider, you can do this really quickly, but and VS Code, so I'm just going to type out. So I'm going to void, then A, and then the name of our character. So if you've named it something different, it'll be something different, but I've named it CPP underscore player. Then we want 2 colons, and then the name of our function, which is going to be move forward. And then we're also going to put float value in there. Now, function, you've got these curly brackets, and we're also going to do the same exact thing for our move rank function. So change this forward to right, and we have 2 functions. So let's start adding the movement to this. That's our code. So first we're going to start with an if statement. So if value is not equal to 0, then we're going to do stuff. So this means if it's above 0, it will move forward, and if it's below 0, it will move backwards. So it's going to be really simple. We're just going to add movement input, and then brackets. Then we're going to get actor forward vector, and then put a bracket in there, comma, and then we're just going to put our value. And that's going to be basically the same for our move right. And instead of forward vector, it's going to be our right vector. And then that is our left, right, and forward movement all set up. But the engine doesn't actually know when we're calling this, so we need to actually bind the keys that we did in our inputs to these functions. So let's do that. So we want to go into our setup player input function here, and we're going to bind the keys to the axes, and we're going to bind the functions to the keys. So we go to player, bind in player, input component, and then put an arrow, and then type in bind axes. Then we've got a bracket. Now we need to make sure this is exactly what we wrote in our engine. So this is going to be referring to that. Call this move forward, and we want to call it on this. Then we need to tell the engine where this function is. So we're going to put an ampersand, then a, and then whatever our class is called, so cpp underscore player, then double colon, and then move forward. Do the same thing for move right, except this one's going to be right, and this one's going to be right as well. Right, so now we've got left, right, and forward movement all set up, but we need to make our look functions work now as well. So we're going to go to player, input component again, and this one's already built in, so we don't need to make any functions for this. So this one's going to be our turn. I'm going to call it on this, and this one isn't actually in our character. This is actually built into the pawn. So we're going to go ampersand, then a, then pawn, then double colon, and we need to type in add controller your input. And this is a function that's created in the pawn class. We'll do the same thing for our turn, min look. So we'll type in look, and then this, then ampersand, a, pawn, then add controller pitch input. And so now we have our look and turning done with our mouse. So that's great. But we also want to add jumping. So this one is actually going to be a bind action, not a bind axes. But it's going to be very similar. So we're going to call this one jump. And this is not going to be a this right now. We're going to type in IE underscore pressed. And then comma, and then this. And then where this function is. And this is one that's actually part of the character class. So I'm going to call it character, and then jump. On the actions, you need a IE released as well. So just copy this, and then we'll change this IE pressed to an IE released. And this one needs to be the stop jumping function. So now we've added jump, look, and all of the movement, which is great. But we also need a camera to display all of this. So we're going to go back into our header file. I'm going to our public, and we're going to make a U property. So we can also edit this in our blueprints, and Unreal can take care of the management of that sort of stuff. I'm just going to put it in a category, just keep it nice and neat. If you add more stuff later, I recommend putting things in categories. And I'm just going to call it components. Right, so what component this is going to be? Our camera component. So we're going to type in U, camera component. And this is a pointer because it's a component. And I'm just going to call this camera comp. Now, the engine doesn't actually know this, so we need to actually add this into our header file. So make sure it's not below this, because this needs to be the last include. So put it here, type in include, and then comma, then camera component, and dot h. once we've done that, we can go into our CPP file and go into our constructor with this function here. Now we need to create a default sub object so we can edit the values and things like that in Blueprints. So we can go to camera, type in camera, which is camera comp, and make sure it's the same thing, you've named it here. And then we want to do create default sub object. Now we need to put a less than sign, and then we're going to type in the name of the component, which is going to be camera component. Then put one of these, and then we need brackets. Now here needs the text, because we want to write some text. And now this is what we're going to name our component in our blueprint. So we're going to start in camera. Right, now we're going to set up some values for this and some settings. So we're going to do camera comp arrow set up attachment. Now this is going to connect our camera to our mesh. Now this mesh is already created in the character class, so it's already built in, so we don't need to make a skeletal mesh or anything. That's it. Also need to change one thing as well, so camera comp and arrow, and it's going to be B use pawn control rotation. I'm going to set that to true. Once we do that, make sure everything's named correctly and spelled right, and we can go to Unreal and we can compile. And just as I'm compiling here, I've actually made a little spelling mistake. So we need to go into our header file, and I've actually spelled camera wrong here, but that should be alright now. So just compile again. Right, so this compiling was successful. So to get this actually working, we need to go to our C++ classes, and we're going to go here and we're going to create a blueprint. So it's going to be called game mode base. Let's create blueprint class. So that's done now. We don't actually need that right now, so I'm just going to close it. Go back to the CPP classes, and then we need to create a blueprint child of this C++ class. So we're going to call it player. Right, so now we've got this blueprint. We can just change the camera position. So I'm just going to make it up a little bit. Just compile that, save. Then go to our project settings, go to maps and modes, and then we can change our default game mode to be the one we've just made. And now we've changed that, we can change our default pawn class to be our BP player. And now we can click play, we can move around, we can look around, we can jump, and yeah, that's all good, and that's basically everything. If you want to add a mesh, we can do that quickly, so just go to your Epic Games. This is made by Epic Games, it's free once you're on this page. Click add to project, and then go to show all projects if you're on Unreal Engine 5 like me. And then just find your project. Like this one's mine, player project. Now it says this, but it's completely fine. It works fine. And just change it to the latest version that works. And now I'm just click add to project. Now that's done, we can go back into the engine and go to our BP player, go to mesh, go to skeletal mesh, and then just select the SK mannequin. Now you see that's on our level. We'll just change it a little bit, so bring it down, and we'll move the camera around a little bit, and we'll just make it as kind of like a first person kind of thing. We can compile, save, and so it looks like. There's no animations on this, but you can add some if you would like. In fact, there are some that come with this. I'll just add this. But yeah. Yeah, so that's about it for our character. If you liked it, subscribe, like, and see you in the next video.